Well, welcome to Torah Today Ministries. My name is Grant Luton.
And I'm Robin, and we are really excited this morning because finally we're having this conversation we've been looking forward to. It's a spontaneous, unrehearsed. Hopefully that won't be terribly obvious.
It'll be pretty obvious, probably.
But we're just here with some young friends, and we're going to share them with you. And Grant, why don't you introduce?
Sure. These are 3 of 6 siblings of the Smith family. We have Avery and Charlotte and Ethan. So Avery, I'm going to start with you. How about you're young enough, I can ask you how old you are.
Yeah.
So how old are you, Avery?
I am 15.
15. You're the oldest of the 6 siblings.
I am, yeah.
Yes. So I'm the youngest in my family, but I know in the scriptures that the firstborn always has extra privilege, but extra responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what that extra responsibility is like for you? I mean, especially having 5 younger brothers and sisters.
Yeah. So I feel like sometimes it's different, There's these expectations and as the oldest sibling, I'm not told to specifically do this, but I know I should. There's just this unknown, I don't know how to necessarily
Does it ever
describe
feel
but
like unfair pressure, or do you?
Sometimes, but I know I put it on myself too. I know with my personality, well, I'm the oldest, I know I should be doing this. But there is, from parents, more responsibility. And I know I equally put it on myself too. So.
Yeah. Do you ever feel resentful of that?
I mean, there's times when I'm I wish I could just be as carefree as my younger siblings. But at the same time, I know that's not the order I was born. And but sometimes, I love being the oldest sibling, sometimes I don't, but I think the majority of the time I do enjoy it.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Well, who is the one who decided of the 6 of you that Avery would be born first?
None of us, yeah.
Who decided that?
Yeah, God did.
God
Yep.
did, of course. So he knew that your family needed you to be born first. And he also knew that it was important for you to be put in this position because he has something special for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're learning an extra measure of responsibility and for whatever it is God has planned for you.
I was firstborn too, Avery.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that is part of my personality, and I suspect you might be able to relate, is you just feel this inborn responsibility for everyone all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then people kind of assume that you are bossy when really you're just trying to make sure everybody's okay all the time and we can't help it, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going with you put it on yourself,
Yeah.
But
Well, you'll always sense that your whole life.
Yeah.
But you know what? God will equip you, and you'll be a leader. You'll be the person that other people need to be involved in order to make things okay.
Yeah. Do you have any idea what you want to do with your life?
So I've gone over a couple different things, but to be honest, I'm definitely not 100% sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to have you back when you figure that out. Well, I'm going to move on to Charlotte and Ethan. Charlotte, how old are you?
I'm 13.
And Ethan, how old are you?
I'm 13, and we're twins.
Oh my goodness, what a coincidence. You're both 13, same birthday. Yeah. So I've had, I taught school for 30 years, and I had a number of identical twins come through class, but not a brother and a sister. So I have to ask you something. Do you two have a special connection? I mean, you got 4 other brothers and sisters, but do you two find you have a very special shared connection because you're twins?
I think so. I mean, there's things where sometimes he'll just smile and I'll just start laughing for no reason. Just little things like that.
Because you couldn't know what he's thinking?
Yeah, kind of, yeah. It's fun. It's really
Yeah.
fun, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And Ethan, you find the same thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah, we both kind of think the same things, and yeah, it's stuff like that. That one of us will just smile at each other,
Yeah.
and
Kind of share a private joke.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
like they'll start laughing. But yeah.
You sound like an old married couple. That's the way Robin and I are. So many times we'll be in a crowded room and, there's conversation going and one person in the room will say one thing and we'll look at each other and know exactly what each other's thinking.
And no one else in the room has any idea why we think it's hilarious.
Yeah, but it took us 45
Right.
years to get there. You're 13 and already had that. So, well, anyways, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come spend it with Robin and me. And one of the things we do with Breadcrumbs is we take a question or an insight in the scripture, just like to talk about it. So we asked you to bring some questions for us. And Robin said this is unrehearsed. We have no idea what your questions are. So you might stump us, and that's okay. And we'll try to figure out an answer from the Word. So let's start with your first question. Who has a question to ask? And everybody looks at Avery.
Well, we've been talking about the value of questions and how
Yes.
the answers aren't necessarily the most important part of a conversation where there are good questions.
Yes.
So we just want to tap into what you guys are thinking. So yeah,
Okay.
questions?
I can say ours first, but
Okay, now this is Avery.
yeah. So yeah, we had like talked about a couple that we had, but I think one of them that all three of us were both thinking about is what does it mean, like realistically, to be a living sacrifice, like
Wow.
today?
A
Yeah.
living sacrifice. Oh, that's a great idea. A great question. And we just had Shavuot, Pentecost, here on Wednesday, 2 days ago, and Tim was talking about how when the people of Israel came out of Egypt, out of slavery to Egypt, through the lamb, they were passed from death to life, from the blood of the lamb. They put the blood on the doorpost, right? And so their firstborn didn't die. They lived. So by the blood of the lamb, they're passed from death to life. And then by the body of the lamb, they're passed from slavery to freedom. Because they ate that lamb, they had food in them, they were energetic, and the next morning they had this long trek, and out of Egypt they went.
Literal slavery.
Literally. So God gave them life, He gave them freedom.
Mm-hmm.
He gave those to them, and they could do with those two things whatever they wanted. So when God asks us to give ourselves to Him, we only have two things to give Him. And those are the two things He gave us, our life and our freedom. And, on Shavuot, we read the story of Ruth. So here's this Gentile who lives outside of Israel, and she follows her mother-in-law, Naomi. And tradition says that Ruth was wealthy. She came from a wealthy family. And so here she is, but she's willing to leave her life in the well-known area of Moab and follow her mother-in-law into the unknown. And she gave her life and her freedom to follow Naomi, to become part of Naomi's people, to follow Naomi's God. And but that's all she had. So I think to be a living sacrifice means we give God the two things that He gave us. We give them back. And that's our life and our freedom. Now, what you can do, and I know this is a long answer, to cut me off if I'm going too long, Robin, but if you don't give God your life and your freedom, then you're behaving like Satan. Satan did what he wanted to do, the way he wanted to do it, and how he wanted to do it. And, in the book of Judges, when Israel would fall into sin, it says that every man did what was right in his own eyes. And when you do things the way you want to do them instead of the way God wants to do them, who you acted like? Acted like the enemy, right?
Yeah.
So God says, listen, I created you. I created every pleasure in the world. I want you to enjoy the pleasures I've made. I've given you life. I've given you freedom. But if you trust me with your life and your freedom, I promise you, you'll have the most abundant life possible. You'll experience all the pleasures life has to give, but in a healthy way. And your life will have meaning. It will have meaning. And I think more than anything else, each of us wants our lives to count for something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we give our lives to God, He'll say, let me show you what I created you for.
I know that I struggled when I was younger, and I even struggle now, sometimes, to be honest, believing or hearing a lie or a temptation that tells me, if you really give up what you want to do right now, your life is going to be a drudge, and you're not going to have as much fun as other people who don't worry about this stuff.
Yeah, there's that fear of missing out.
There is
Yeah.
that
Yes.
fear of missing out. I call it FOMO. Have you heard that?
Fear of
Yeah,
missing out.
uh-huh.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. It's like a secret that you begin to discover as you mature. There's a verse that says, if you hold on to your life tightly, you're going to lose it. But if you let go of it, you'll find it. It's like a riddle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to really figure out that that is true. It really is true. And when you begin to look around for opportunities to love people, you feel happy.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
feel happy. But when you follow the crowd, who are just looking for ways to feel happy all the time, you'll feel frustrated and empty. And adults used to tell me that, and I didn't really believe it. It's something you really do have to discover.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at the three of you, and I know what quality of humans you are already, and I suspect you're going to learn that a lot sooner than I did. I hope so. That is really my prayer for
Yeah.
all of you, because that is the future that makes you content
Yeah.
and really happy.
Well, think about Adam and Eve. Why did they eat the fruit? Because the enemy convinced them, you're going to miss out if you don't.
Yeah.
So what happened? You know, we don't know what that fruit was. Let's say it was an apple. So they got the apple, but it cost them Eden.
Yeah.
They lost Eden.
Yeah.
I'd rather have had Eden than not had the apple.
And it
So-
cost them freedom.
Oh, it cost them life and freedom.
Yeah.
So it's like, which do you want? Do things your way? Well, okay, you get this apple, but you lose the garden. And, or you know what? I'm not going to worry about what I think I might be missing out on, because I don't want to miss out on the garden. And He's given me all of that. I can't have both. I can have one or the other.
You know, another thing, you guys, that used to make it tricky, well, it still makes it tricky for me sometimes, is there are people who claim to be God followers who talk about this stuff, and they say things, but when I look at their life, things they do and things they say, I don't really want to be like them.
Yeah.
I don't admire their life, and I feel guilty sometimes. Or
Yeah.
when I was your age, I'm like, I'm not sure if I would ever feel honest enough to say this out loud, but I don't want my life to look like that.
Right.
Which kind of brings me to a question for you three. I don't care who answers it. What are some things that you see in more adult believers that claim to love God? Let's just define it that way. That make you admire not only their life, but kind of makes you think maybe this whole God thing is a life worth pursuing. Is that a hard question to answer?
Or can I add
Yeah.
a second part? Or what do you see in the lives of, maybe don't name names, of some older believers you think, well, I don't want a life like that.
Yeah.
So who wants to respond to that?
Go ahead, Avery.
Okay. So I think, so I know it's something that I do really admire is humility. And then, you know, the opposite of that, pride as well. It just seems like, you know, I really appreciate when people are open about things, and when I really admire that in people, like
Yeah.
humility, because it's
Yeah.
something that I struggle with personally. And to see people who clearly love God and that they
Yeah.
are humble about it, it's like,
Right.
okay, now I know what I need to work on, and I can see that in people, and I admire that.
Humility is the most attractive trait any human being
Yeah,
can ever
That's
have.
absolutely.
why everyone likes little kids,
Yeah.
because they're humble.
Yeah.
So I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit, Avery.
Oh, yeah.
While we're on this subject. think of a person, like Grant said, don't name their name, who you consider
You can tell us later who it is.
one of the more humble people that you know. Can you describe them a little bit? What reveals humility to you in their behavior and in their life?
All right. Well, I got to think about this for a second.
Sure. Feel free.
I think just like being gentle about things, that is something that I struggle with too. And a lot of these are just traits that I know I personally deal with. And being open about learning new things.
Okay.
And
So
even like
open-minded?
when people like that I respect correct me on things, but when it's in a way of like, hey, I struggle with these things too, it's okay to deal with them, but here's a right way to do. Like, I admire that. I
Okay.
really do.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
How about you two?
Yeah. Charlotte, tell us what Ethan would say.
That you can read his mind.
Well, I don't know what he would say, but
We're just being silly.
I guess for me, I think like them having like self-control with a lot of things.
Yeah.
In like everything they do. I myself like struggle with self-control and like that a lot. I think that just, I admire that a lot in like people.
That like don't lose their temper a lot.
Don't lose their temper a lot. Just very gentle and having like patience with other people.
Yeah. Well, that self-control is really insightful because proud people want to control others. Humble people want to control themselves. And that is a real key. Yeah, definitely. Ethan, how about you?
Well, like some people are like afraid of like sharing their faith in public. Like even like myself, like I can like be afraid sometimes, but I feel like some people are like really good at that and like they can just like feel free to share like about what we believe, like
Right.
and I just think that's really cool
Yeah.
how they have that ability.
Well, Ethan, if I can share something personal with you, I was never, ever good at sharing my faith. And I felt really condemning because I was raised in a Baptist church where you went door to door and passed out tracts. And if you weren't sharing your faith
You were
every
trained.
day,
Trained to do
then
it.
something's wrong with you. And I just grew up thinking, well, there's something wrong with me because I'm not very good at it. And I feel so uncomfortable doing it. And especially with people I haven't met before. Yet I saw other people, like you described, who are just like a fish in water. It just, I was
It's who
with
they
somebody
are.
this morning before he came over, and he is just so natural. He meets somebody, and within 5 minutes, they're talking about the Lord, and the person's drawn in and listen to what they have to say. I don't have that gift. I just don't. If somebody asks me a question about the Bible or something I believe, I'm happy to talk to them. But when we read in Paul's writings, he talks about different gifts, and some people have the gift of evangelism. They just have the gift of sharing the gospel. And other people, they proclaim it just through the way they live. And if they're asked about it, they'll talk about it. But don't ever condemn yourself because you just feel like, I feel real awkward trying to initiate a conversation about this.
I've come to the place where I want to live an authentic life
Yes.
that speaks louder than if I talk about my faith specifically. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? Or okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah, Yeshua said, let your light so shine among men that they see what? Your good works. Okay? In such a way they give glory to their Father in heaven. And my mom would ask, how much noise does light make?
That's a good
None.
question.
She would always say, preach the gospel at all times, use words if necessary. And that stuck with me, and that really helped. And
So here's a question for the three of you while we're talking about this. When you think of people that you admire, like Ethan, you said there are people you watch and they just so naturally are able to share the truth about God with other people. Are they happy people or unhappy people?
I think it could be both, but I think it's mostly happy people because like watching them do that, like they're happy to see others really like understanding and listening to what they have to say about like Yeshua.
It's always been difficult for me to believe that a generally unhappy person is enjoying their relationship with God. And it's not a really good sell when a person is generally very unhappy. So happiness to me is a sign that someone knows something that I want to know. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But nobody shared the things they see in adults that call themselves believers that just like make cringy. What kind of cringy things have you seen among people who are very vocal about their faith?
Yeah. Well, I think, it goes hand in hand with the humility thing is pride,
Wow.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And pushy?
Like when I see people, like adults that I know, and I do respect them for how much they know about the word, but I see them like push away other people who also maybe feel the same calling, just aren't in the same place as them.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I have a hard time like respecting them as much.
Yeah.
You know?
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That doesn't look like love, does it?
It doesn't look like Yeshua.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Great
Yeah.
answers. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ethan, Rachel, do you have any?
Rachel?
Where did
Where's
Rachel go? Charlotte, sorry.
He does this. He
You
forgets
look
my
like
name.
a Rachel. I see people and think, well, this is what they should have been named. But Charlotte. So anything cringy you two can think of, you've seen in people who are vocal about their faith that you're thinking, oh, I don't want to be like that.
I think a lot of people, they'll say like, like they believe in God, and they'll just say like, almost make it look at how great they are because like they follow God, but then they don't like do anything else other than just say that they're a believer.
Talking.
Yeah.
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 And Ethan, has something to say too. I see you leaning in.
Yeah, I feel like they think that they're like better in a way than the people that don't know so much.
Yeah.
And
That's a turnoff, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah. There's a saying that I love. It says, talk less and do more.
Yeah.
Yes.
I try to live by that.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah.
So good. Well, another
Another
question.
question.
Do you have another question to ask? Who's going to ask this one? Charlotte?
I think I was just, one of the questions that I had was how do we, totally forgot how to word it, but how do we die to ourselves every single day, how we're called to do, and what does that look like, I guess?
Well, that's kind of like the first question.
Yeah, they kind
How
of
to
tie
be a
in.
living sacrifice.
We had a little bit of a discussion, so
Yeah.
if these questions
Yeah.
seem like really similar.
Yeah, that's great. They're good questions, though.
Yeah. Well, for me, and Robin can speak for herself, whenever God gives me something to do, and it often comes in the form of a request from someone else who needs something. Like, Grant, can you go let the dog out? Can you go walk the dog? And I'm thinking, I don't want to walk the dog. But the thing is, there's something I want to do, but I say no to me and yes to the other. And that's dying to self. And that's what being a living sacrifice is. And
I'll take care of that.
yeah, I wonder who that could be. So this is unrehearsed. We have somebody ringing our doorbell. But yeah, it's what Yeshua did in the garden. We think of Yeshua as always wanting to do only what God wanted. But he said several times, says, I didn't come to do my will. I came to do the will of him who sent me. That tells us he had a will that was different from God's. And then in the garden, 3 times he begged, Father, let this cup pass from me. Don't make me go to the cross. I don't want to do this. Then he followed it up with what? Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. So he showed us what it's like to die to what I want and to say yes to what God wanted. And aren't you glad he said yes to what the Father wanted?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So he could have saved his own life, but where would that leave us?
You know,
So
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so when you die to self, what happens? You're living like him, and it gives life to everybody else around you.
Yeah. I was just going to say, along the same lines, there's something that the master said. He says, if you want to be great in this kingdom, like if we serve the king in this world, the kingdom is invisible, but we kind of live by his rules, which a lot of people might not get. And he says, if you want to be great in that kingdom, not in the world's kingdom, but in this kingdom, you serve people.
Yeah.
You serve others.
Be the servant of all.
And you know his training ground for that? Family. That's why he designed marriage for that. Because you're going to find out immediately when you get married someday that life isn't all about you if you want to have a good marriage. You look for ways to serve the other person, and that's the secret to a great marriage. It's as simple as that. Selfishness will kill it immediately. And then a family happens, and God says, now, here's your training ground.
Yeah.
This is where you learn to be part of the kingdom, and you serve. So when people tell me that they are God followers, and they go out and want to, quote unquote, share, even, like you were talking about earlier, but they don't treat their brothers and sisters in kindness and patience and humility, it's not authentic. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
If you can't do it at home, it's not real yet.
Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Well, while you're talking, Robin, I was thinking about all the stories in the rabbinic writings where they share about how we have no idea what incredible rewards we get even for small acts of kindness. And Yeshua talks about this in Matthew 25, and where there's the judgment, and he puts the sheep on the right, the goats on the left, and he says to the sheep, I was hungry, you clothed me, I was thirsty, you gave me to drink, I was sick, and you visited me, and you did these things. And they say, we don't remember doing any of that. They didn't remember doing any of that. They did it all unconsciously. And he says, to the degree you did at least to one of these my brothers, you did it to me. Really? And he says, come into the joy that has been prepared for you. And they were unconscious of all these good deeds they had done, but the incredible reward. So here's a question for you. There are 2 commandments in the Torah where we are told what the reward is for the commandment. Do you know what either of those commandments is?
Yeah, it's like if you do
It's kind of a
this, then
trivia
this will
question.
happen. Yeah.
There's only 2 where he gives us the reward for it. Can you think of one? Oh.
Crickets and
We
Give
are
them a hint.
thinking. We might need a hint.
Anybody want to take a guess? It's one of the 10 commandments is one of them. It's number 5.
Go ahead.
Okay, it says to honor your father and your mother, that your life will be long in the land. In other words, you honor your parents, you're going to have a long life in the land. And so he's saying, here's a reward. Now, the other commandment is when you come to a nest and you're going to take the eggs out of the nest, drive away the mother bird.
Doesn't that sound weird? Why would he tell us
Because they fly
that?
off anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, that's the easiest commandment in the world to keep. Because you reach in a nest, the mother bird might hover around a bit, but they'll fly off. It's so easy to keep. Honoring parents is very difficult to keep. But if you drive off the mother bird, it says you'll have long life. So the rabbis say, here's one of the most difficult commandments, honoring parents. Here's the easiest commandment, driving a bird away from a nest. Yet the reward is long life in the land. And they said, we don't even know what the rewards are for each of the other commandments. But if we could picture for a moment that each commandment we keep, each good deed we do, each mitzvah, There's an eternal reward for that little thing. So if we could have the slightest concept of that, we'd be looking for things to do. We'd be looking for commandments to keep. And so it's, if we can start to think that way, it makes it a little easier.
And you know what makes it even easier for me, because I like immediate gratification. I like the idea of knowing that in the next life I won't have so many regrets, but I also want this life to be really good.
Yeah.
And so when the Bible promises long life in the land, it doesn't mean many, many years. It means quality of life. Because there are really good, obedient, sweet, and humble people who die young. And we don't understand that. But what he's promising is that every day that you do live is going to be good.
Yeah.
It's going to be rich. It's going to be the best potential you can experience. So here's a question. Can you relate to this? Family life, it gets crazy. Every minute kind of presents an opportunity to either be selfish or kind. I mean, with all the brothers and sisters in your house, am I right?
Mm-hmm.
When you lose your temper and you give into anger and you blurt something out,
Which never happens, but
which
that's
let's just
hypothetically.
hypothetically,
If it should.
we have to really use our imagination. Immediately, right at first, it feels kind of good, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like to yell and get angry, it's like, yeah, it just feels good for a second or two, maybe even 5 minutes, and then later, it just feels bad.
Yeah.
And it keeps feeling
shame.
bad.
Yeah.
And it gets bitter. Whereas when you sacrifice what you want to do, like Charlotte asked earlier, how do you lay your life down? So you do something for the other person, even if it isn't what you feel like at the moment. The immediate reaction might be, this is hard and inconvenient, but the lasting feeling is, man, I'm so glad I made that choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that works. When we are selfish, immediately we kind of feel good, but the long term is cruddy.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true as
Yeah,
well. Do
so
you
true.
agree?
Oh, yeah.
And that really is
Yeah.
what the Torah teaches. You guys, most people live their entire adult life and might grow old in years, and they never discover the secret. So they live and die miserable lives because they're believing what they're hearing out there. Just live for yourself. Grab it all for yourself. Don't worry about other people. You need to follow your heart and do what makes you happy, or you're going to miss out. Not so much
No.
true.
No. You know, the culture is a lie. It's a lie. I feel like we've been talking a lot. I want to hear more from them.
Well, then go for it.
Talk, speak, say something, ask a question, or while we've been talking, you have an insight or something that comes to mind. Ethan.
Well, this isn't like an insight, but it's like one of the questions that I was thinking of. Like, this says somewhere in Leviticus, be holy as I am holy.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that mean, like, in our daily lives? Like,
Yeah, that's a great question.
like, 'cause, like, Yeshua, he's, like, the definition of holy. Like, and...
Well,
yeah.
here's the question I want to ask you. What does the word holy mean?
Yeah.
Well, probably, like, set apart.
Set apart.
And
Does God say be righteous as I am righteous? No, because we can't do that. That's a goal to aim for.
Does he say be perfect?
He does say perfect, but the word perfect is there to be complete, not to be flawless. He
Okay.
knows that is something we should aim for, but probably never achieve in this lifetime. But he does say be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy. So holy means set apart. And it doesn't mean isolated. It just simply means put some distance, put a little distance. And you know, when Moses saw the burning bush, he just like, I've got to see what this is all about. So he starts going up, climbing up, getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And finally, what does God say? Stop. Don't come any closer. This is holy ground. So there's a little distance here. You stay that distance. When Yeshua was on the seashore talking to a crowd of people, he wanted to reach the whole crowd, but he could only, they're crowded around him, all he could talk to was just a few right in front of him. So it says he saw a boat, he got in the boat and said, push off a little bit from the shore. He put a little distance between him and the people. Now he could talk to the whole crowd, he could see them all.
But what does that mean in real life?
What it means is that don't get too connected to the culture. Don't get too connected to this world, but be set apart. And oftentimes you're invited to do something with friends who may not know God. You can't just say, no, I'm not going to do that. But on the other hand, have some caution, have some distance, have a cushion there. And because there's going to be a degree to which they want you to go, and you realize, no, I can't do that. I have to keep a distance.
It's a tricky, it takes
is.
wisdom, because
It does.
like going back to what we talked about earlier, you don't want to be that holier than thou kind of religious person that is off-putting to people, yet you want to live a life that isn't just as lost as everyone else.
Yeah. So it means knowing God's commandments really, really well, because his commandments are a picture of how he lives life. Each commandment is a picture of him and how he does things. He says, I want you to do things the same way. And does God help people? Does he answer people when they call out to him? Does he show love to people? Does he take care of people who don't know him? Sure. So he says, do those things. But there are other things that people may try to lure you into. You say, no, that conflicts with something God wants me to do. Or that conflicts with something he says, don't do. So you have to maintain that loyalty to God. So if it's going to be loyalty to God or to your friend, you stay loyal to him. And that's how you're holy as he is. You want to live your life in this world the way he lives his life in this world. And that's something we can do. We really can do.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Does it prompt any other questions, or does that satisfy your question, Ethan?
Yeah, I think that was pretty good.
Okay. That's pretty good.
It was pretty good. A C on it.
No,
But
yeah.
it's a tough question to answer. It really
Yeah.
is. Because there's not something really definitive. It's just like a formula.
Because we're figuring it out too, as we journey in our walk with God and our relationship with other people, Ethan. It isn't something like a switch gets flipped and you understand it. You grow into it.
Yeah, it's
I
a journey.
I
It
often
is.
compare living life in this world as surfing. I've never surfed, but you've seen people surf. Because every wave is different. You never can tell. It's going to change. It's dynamic. What you do, you stay on the board, keep your balance. Living a holy life in this world is stay on the board, keep your balance. Always be aware of the dynamics around you, how that wave, it wants to throw you off the board. It just wants to roll over you and pull you under. But you stay on the board and you keep your balance, and then what happens
It's fun.
is it pushes you along.
It's fun.
It's your journey.
Yeah, and other people watch and think, I want to be that way.
Yeah.
You know, that's the
So-
result of that.
And you learn to do it by falling off the board a
Yeah,
lot.
and get clobbered in the head with it. It's happened.
I said somebody over here wanted to say something. Was there?
Anything going on over there?
Avery?
At that end of the
Um,
table?
I don't think I had any specific input.
Okay.
I did have something about earlier, like
Yeah.
when you were talking about how, you know, in the moment, like your selfishness or outbursts can be like fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just going to add that when I just know from personal experience, when I get angry and outburst and my family or like maybe I anger my mom or my siblings and then I get it back and I'm just realizing how unfruitful, like you see firsthand, like, wow, that's what I'm doing to people. Like,
Yeah.
wow, that must hurt, or, you
It
know.
echoes back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when it echoes. And I think
Yeah.
that in a big family, like, one person's decisions can cause, like, a bad day for everyone.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
isn't that the
So
truth?
true.
You really
Yes.
see, it's like a domino effect.
It is.
Mhm.
It is. I heard one rabbi describe it as like a mobile that you hang over a baby's crib with all those little strings dangling and there are little things at the end that they lay in their crib and look at. If you pull or tug or flick one of them, what happens to everybody in the whole family?
Yeah.
We all start to
Just
move
gets,
around.
like, crazy.
It gets
Yeah.
crazy. And we create energy for others around us to live in. Are
Yeah.
we making it better? Are we making it worse? Are we building them up? Are we pulling them down? And that's our training ground. And the great thing about family is it's the safe place
Yes.
where there's love and we can encourage each other and not walk away and give up on each other. That's why God designed family, so that then when we leave our family, we're
Yeah.
ready to go
Yes.
out into a bigger
That's so true.
pool
That's
of
so true.
people.
God has blessed you with a large family,
A
6
great
siblings,
one. A
wonderful
great
mom
one.
and dad.
Yes.
So this family is the laboratory where you learn, you make your mistakes, it's safe, and you're going to be loved anyway.
Yeah.
But you also learn how to serve, to be selfless, to be a living sacrifice, even though a brother or sister could be the most annoying person in the world.
It's their job.
Because God's plan for you is not to live in that house with your brothers and sisters the rest of your life, but to go out to find the right guy or the right gal and become a husband and wife,
Make a new
have
family.
and
Yeah.
live a career, live a life out there in the world. This is a very safe place for you to learn those skills, how to live a holy life, a patient life,
A humble
self-controlled
life.
a humble
Yeah.
life.
And you guys
And,
you're doing so well.
And your mom and
Thank
dad
you.
are awesome.
Yeah.
They're praying for you and they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
So,
We should do this again.
yeah, let's do it again.
Yeah. Are we at
So
the
who
end
was,
of
I
our
have to ask,
time?
who's at the door?
It was our friend Phil returning our stuff.
Oh,
that
okay.
We loaned
Oh,
them the
cool.
other day.
Oh,
So
good. He's a good friend.
yeah, we should have had him
Alright.
come in and join our conversation.
We could.
That'd have been funny.
Well, with that,
Oh my goodness.
it's like what's fun, we get to keep talking after we turn off the recorder.
Yeah,
And
everyone will be
people get to
jealous.
listen. Yeah.
Any last comments you all want to make to people or to us before we flip the switch?
I just want to say thank you. This was really cool to do,
Uh-huh.
and I'm really glad that we got to do this with you guys.
Well, thank you. It's been great having you here.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of this, I've had questions for like a while, and a lot of this just kind of helped me realize, just like what to do in certain situations,
Yeah.
especially with like what we were talking about, like the temptations with like
Yeah.
friends or just random people that are like, oh, come do like this.
Yeah.
And it's like, maybe if I do it, it's okay. It's just like a little thing, but that can turn into something huge. And I think
yeah.
that's just definitely having like the self-control to like,
Well, we'll
Choose not
definitely do
to.
this again.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, like, just how, obeying these little commandments can have big rewards. Just doing these little things with friends, they can also, lead to
Yeah.
bigger and, just issues that we didn't necessarily foresee.
That's right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Avery, it's funny you said it that way. You succinctly said what I read this morning in Psalm 119. Verse 9 says, "How can a young person keep their way pure? By keeping it according to your word. And with all my heart I've sought you, don't let me wander from your commandments."
Yeah.
Do you know what a gift the three of you have
Oh,
to
my
know
goodness.
this and to be in a family that even cares about you knowing this?
Yeah, we all feel very blessed.
You
Yeah.
are.
You are.
And you're a blessing to us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we
Thank
love
you
being
so
here.
much.
Yes, thank you guys.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to bid goodbye to everyone. We wish you shalom and may God bless.
Shalom, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for today's teaching. If the work of Torah Today Ministries has touched your life, please consider making a donation or sponsoring an upcoming video. As a video sponsor, you'll have an exclusive opportunity to memorialize a family member, celebrate a special event, or simply support the ongoing creation of similar content. Your tax-deductible contribution helps ensure that our teachings continue to reach all who are longing for truth. Click the link or visit our website to learn more.